For this evening, I will be discussing two topics. So first will be Bell's palsy, just a rapid review. If ever you would encounter patients like with presentation of weakness, specifically on the facial area, and then another topic which is occupational safety hazards. No, so first let's go first with our first topic. So Bell's palsy. So I assume we have encountered some cases of Bell's palsy in the clinics. So if you would notice that most of the presentation of patients with Bell's palsy often presents with uh, palsy of cranial nerve 7, no? Majority lang dun lang sa may cranial nerve 7 and the rest are unremarkable or normal. Okay, so dapat you have to be familiarized with how to assess patients that is suspected with Bell's palsy. So for my reference, since there are no local guidelines that is in relation to our topic, we will be using the American Family Physician reference from America, also AFP. So Bell's palsy is forehead motion sparing. So if you would notice, does it spare the forehead or is it including the forehead? So the correct answer would be okay, it's not sparing, so most likely it should include. Because if it spares it, it's most likely the lesion would be a supranuclear lesion, or it's above the nucleus of cranial nerve 7. So most likely nasa cortex siya. So kung yung lesion niya ay nasa cortex, most likely it can be a space-occupying lesion in the cerebrum or in the parenchyma of either of the following, either your temporal or your parietal, or even if it's in the frontal area. No, basta near the homunculus that is in relation to your face. Okay, so a quick introduction. Your Bell's palsy. Bell's palsy should be suspected if it is noted to be acute in onset. So acute is usually around spanning less than 2 weeks. So dun yung presentation niya. The earliest nga, at least within a week, nagpakita siya. And it has unilateral facial weakness. So unilateral meaning there's only one side, either if it's a left or a right, never both. Okay. And the paralysis will always involve the forehead. So it should always be noted that there is involvement of the forehead. Now, if there is no involvement, again, so for slide natin, it's more likely to be a supranuclear or an upper motor neuron lesion rather than a nuclear lesion. It is from your cranial nerve 7. So aside from that, you should also delineate that it has the presence or it has the absence of other neurologic abnormalities. So you have to do a comprehensive neurologic examination. So overall prognosis for patients with Bell's palsy, if you diagnose it correctly, the overall prognosis is good. And 2/3 of patients completely spontaneously recover from the condition. So meaning if you treat the patient correctly and give him proper rehabilitation, the features as well as the function of the face will go back to its normal function. Almost 2/3 of patients. So yung 1/3, yun lang, may konting drooping, may konting numbness na mafe-feel that would often be related to additional time for it to heal and requires rehabilitation. Okay, the source is more likely most of cases of Bell's palsy are idiopathic. Ibig sabihin nun, wala pa. Hindi natin alam kung saan nanggagaling ito. It could be an inflammatory response from a previous infection, or it can be subsequently an inflammation of the nerves. Okay, it can also be triggered by stress in some instances. Now, do you need laboratory testing or imaging for patients with Bell's palsy? It's not required. Okay, so di mo kailangan actually ng CT scan if you have a first case impression of Bell's palsy, not unless you see other neurologic abnormalities. Now, Going back to the differentials, as I mentioned earlier, one of the key things that you need to look at is syempre the forehead. Again, if it does not involve the forehead, that is more likely a supranuclear lesion. As seen here, sure, kung makikita ko yung pointer, yan. If the lesion is present above, okay, the nucleus from the brainstem, more likely in the parenchyma of the cerebrum, and it is located up there, that's called a supranuclear lesion. Supra meaning above. The nucleus is usually located at the brainstem. So if the lesion is up there, it could spare the forehead. Okay, so that is more likely. If that's a lesion up above the nucleus, you would suspect either a space occupying lesion, either a stroke, and even a buildup of fluid or blood due to trauma. Pwede rin yun. Okay, aside from that feature of an upper motor neuron lesion, okay, or a supranuclear lesion, you should also consider other diagnoses if you note that the features of weakness of the face is bilateral. Hindi siya, kumbaga, isang side lang. You would present a patient with both left and right numbness. Hindi na yun more likely Bell's palsy. Okay, aside from that, if let's say there's hearing loss and tinnitus or vertigo, if there's an involvement of cranial nerve 8, you should also consider other pathologies. Okay, pwedeng may mga features of Meniere's, meron ding other features of cranial 8 palsy, or a lesion near the inner ear. Okay, that can be one feature that can be a differential diagnosis. So overall, the lesson there is you have to do a comprehensive neurologic examination to save the patient from being prescribed or requested for a CT scan or an MRI. Kung kaya mo ma-distinguish or ma-differentiate yung features niya nang wala naman talagang other neurologic features other than cranial nerve 7, you can treat your patient with Bell's palsy with confidence. Okay? Yeah. Other diagnoses you have to check. Again, since your Bell's palsy is an acute onset, meaning sobrang bilis lang, if the features are gradually progressing, look for other conditions or diagnoses. If this graduality of symptoms is more than 3 months, look for other diseases. Baka kasi sinabi niya na may weakness na ng side ng muka, 6 months na. So look for something else because that's not Bell's palsy. If let's say there is a limb or bulbar weakness, meaning there's a weakness of the arms or the legs during the time of the presentation, more likely your features are more fitting with stroke or a ischemia. And you could look also for systemic or localized facial skin cancers. Pwede rin kasi kapag skin cancer yan, nagkaroon ng numbness because the nerves and the tissues located at the skin area wherein there is numbness would also present with the irregularities of skin cancer. Remember A, B, C, D, E? So you have to distinguish and do a thorough visual inspection of the skin. Baka kasi meron kang melanoma, meron kang basal cell carcinoma, or squamous cell carcinoma sa local areas. Okay? Now, finally, signs of infection. Kaya pala namamanhid siya. Kasi if you would look closely, may mga vesicles doon. Merong mga, vesicles in evolution. Merong may pus, merong may fluid build-up, may pumutok na. Baka naman pala shingles to or varicella zoster infection. So you have to look at also other features of viral infection. Now, if it's, let's say, for example, an ipsilateral recurrent Bell's palsy, pabalik-balik, it should also be an alarm. Kasi most often kapag ganyan na nangyayari, you would often request for a deeper study. So deeper study would include requesting for an image because it might be a presentation of an underlying tumor or space-occupying lesion. So aside from that, you have to also look for the positive features of Bell's palsy. You have the feature of your mouth droop. Okay, since it's the lower face that is presenting, nagdo-droop yung affected, okay, area of your cranial nerve 7. There's noted flattening of the nasolabial folds. Okay, ito ang nasolabial fold natin. Look at me. And there's an inability to close the eyes. You would notice also patients with Bell's palsy, they would present what we call the Bell's phenomenon. Nag-upward rolling, ganun. And hindi nila masasara yung mata nila. Okay? Smoothing of the brow, okay, on the affected side of the face is also seen because there is presentation of affectation of the forehead. So pag smoothening, walang wrinkles dito sa may noo of the affected side because you cannot do any movement at all. So that is a clear indication na kasama yung noo sa features ng pasyente mo. Now, you also have to assess for the severity of Bell's palsy. Now, we classify severity of Bell's palsy according to the House-Brackman scale. So, ito dapat, you could have this in a little tickler, siguro sa notebook nyo. When I was a resident, meron akong ganito. Meron pa rin naman. Nandiyan lang sa tabi-tabi, hindi ko lang kung saan nilagay. Pero I usually write down notes kung ano yung score. Grade 1 to grade 6, that is your House-Brackman score, depending on the severity. You could browse this. I'll be providing the PowerPoint later on to know the classification or the severity. But kailangan ito because it also has something to do with the recommendations for rehabilitation. Okay, so we'll touch that later. Now, question. 45-year-old male with severe left facial paralysis and minimal facial motion. No forehead involvement and with evident facial twitching. What is the House-Brackman scale? Sino magsasagot? Nakita niyo ba yung kanina? Severe facial paralysis, minimal facial motion. Nasagot ko ba ito? O, balikan na lang natin. Yan, House-Brackman 5. Sagot ko pala. Meron sagot pala siya. Now, approach to the treatment of your Bell's palsy. Look at this algorithm. This is from the guidelines from the AFP. Okay, evidence of a specific cause of peripheral nerve palsy. Sample your cranial nerves. So if it's highly suspicious that it's cranial nerve 7 and there are no other cranial nerves affected, doing a complete thorough physical exam and neuro exam, you can start treatment. Okay? Treat specifically. No? Kung wala naman siyang other sources, you treat it. Okay? The treatment is usually treat with oral corticosteroids and ensure eye protection kasi hindi siya nagsasara ng mata. You can also offer combination therapy of oral corticosteroids and antiviral. So we'll provide you the dosage later. Now for severe complete paralysis, sabi ko nga kanina, if it's House-Brackman 5 to 6, okay, or prolonged paralysis, rehabilitation is highly recommended. Okay, how would you tell if, let's say, the paralysis is more than 3 months? Let's say, nag-treat ka na on the acute onset, pero nag-maintain pa rin yung paralysis niya. Despite grade, siguro grade 3, grade 2, meron pa rin. You could offer rehabilitation. Yun nga yung medyo matagal. The people who are at the unfortunate 1/3 of the recovery phase. Di ba sabi 2/3 of complete recovery? So if hindi pa rin siya okay, you offer physical therapy. So what are the recommendations for the treatment? Patients with Bell's palsy should be prescribed with oral corticosteroids. So this is a high-grade evidence, and it should be started upon diagnosis. So oral corticosteroids improves the rate of full recovery. So you should provide them immediately upon your diagnosis. So the dosage is 50 to 60 milligrams per day for 5 days with a 5-day taper. So the meta-analysis comparing the dosage of prednisone noted here that it's less than 450 versus 450, noted that it's more potent and more beneficial if you start the dose with the following that was prescribed. Now, if unsatisfactory in recovery, try to lower also the dose. Now, for pregnant women, konti lang yung evidence dito. So you should always take to consideration that you try to consult with an OB. Kapag ganito situation na mayroong OB or OB patient na meron siyang Bell's palsy, shared decision making is important because you're giving patient with steroids, diba? Nonetheless, hindi naman tayo masyadong nakakita ng patient na buntis. Steroids should be started once you diagnose the patient with Bell's palsy. The importance also of your oral corticosteroids is it reduces synkinesis or yung lagging ng symptoms niya, no? So you plan the patient to give prednisone oral therapy. How will you taper? So here is a quick cheat sheet. So gradual taper, you plan, okay, ito, tingnan niyo ito. Gradual taper for 5 days. So you start them, the maximum of 60 milligrams. So ang available sa market is usually at a 20 milligram tablet. Diba? So pwede ka magbigay ng 20 milligram 3 times a day. Okay? Tuloy-tuloy yun for 1 to 5 days. And then taper it. Okay? So day 6, mag-taper ka. Since nag-60 ka, mag-reduce ka ng 20 on day 6. Then mag-reduce ka ng 10, day 7, 10 ulit, 10, and then mag-reduce ka na ng 5 on day 5. Take note the dosage availability in the market. If let's say, for example, one pharma, si Pred 20, Pred 10, and Pred 5. Doon ka maglaro ng yung tapering. So, let's say sa 60 milligram dosage, 20 milligram per tablet na meron tayo, 20 milligram 3 times a day. Okay? Tapos yung 40 milligrams, 20 milligram twice a day. Yung 30 milligrams, meron naman tayong 10 milligram tab, 10 milligram 3 times a day. Tapos yung 20, 10 milligrams twice a day. 10 milligrams. Yung 10 milligrams, pwedeng 5 milligrams 2 times a day, and then 5 milligram once on the last day. Okay? So that whichever is fitting na best or suitable sa pasyente nyo. Okay? That is the better way of tapering your prednisone. Now, meron kasing mga ruma na in onset, since nagbigay na siya ng 5 days diretso, there's a dictum na kahit hindi naman siya full dose, like in sa cases of gout, 0.5 milligram per kilogram lang, di ba? Pag kinompute mo, tapos 5 days lang, pwede ka naman mag-discontinue agad. Pero in this situation na hanggang 10 days, you are required to do tapering. Okay? At saka sa guidelines, tapering is yung included siya sa guidelines for Bell's palsy. So I suggest na if you are sticking to the guideline, stick to gradual tapering. Okay? Yeah. Next, there's a recommendation from the rapid review that you could add antivirals, okay, and should be considered with patients with Bell's palsy to reduce synkinesis. Now, this is a evidence grade B with moderate certainty of evidence because most often, sabi ko nga kanina, it can be triggered by a viral infection. Pwedeng upper respiratory infection or upper respiratory tract infection na triggered by a viral disease, either rhinovirus, coronavirus, okay, para-influenza virus or influenza virus. So you could start the patient also. Pwede rin naman din mga herpes viruses like your varicella zoster infections can even be presented, or herpes simplex infections can present with the presentation of your Bell's palsy. So what are the antiviral treatments that are mentioned in the guidelines? So there is a improvement if you add antivirals for the patient. Studies say, but still unclear for full recovery. 2 meta-analysis noted that there's no increased rate of full recovery, but there is noted that it is beneficial, no? Meta-analysis with, ano to? NMT, nakalimutan ko na. Low quality trials. Yung mga maliliit lang na studies, okay? With low quality data, though still noted to be published. No, there was noted that there is a reduced incomplete recovery without adverse events. So though the type of studies are not that high quality, there's a trend na nagkaroon ng improvement pa rin this with the inclusion of antiviral treatment. So the regimen on those trials that were assessed, okay, specifically those small scale na meta-analysis, were valaciclovir 1 gram 3 times a day for 7 days, or acyclovir 400 milligrams 5 times a day for 10 days. So yung acyclovir, pwede siyang magsabay dun sa prednisone na 10 days na binibigay natin. Diba? So you could include that. Now, the problem there is in our clinic, syempre, acyclovir is expensive. No? This is just, kumbaga, an additional room for improvement and to reducing kinesis. Pero if you stick just to oral corticosteroids, it would also be fine. Just as long as you know that there is also a study or there's also a recommendation that you can include, okay? You can include antivirals on the treatment. Okay, the third recommendation, patients with Bell's palsy should not be treated with antiviral alone. So this is also to seal the information now. You can add antivirals on top of your oral corticosteroids, but you cannot treat Bell's palsy with antivirals alone. Okay? Let that be kumbaga set as part of the recommendation. So hindi antiviral lang. There should always be a oral corticosteroids. There's no effect to recovery if you just give antivirals. Surgical treatment, is surgery an option for Bell's palsy? There's insufficient evidence regarding cranial nerve 7 decompression to improve outcome. So it's not a consideration. Patients, for eye care, and patients unable to close their eyes, you provide them with an eye shield. So an eye shield is usually parang a cone. Pwede kang gumawa nun, a piece of paper, and then you could patch it, gawa ka ng eye patch. Or you could also instruct the patient to buy an eye patch from the local pharmacy. Gawa lang naman siya sa cotton, and then you could just provide a micropore tape na idikit siya from each side. So that will be also beneficial. And if let's say nagda-dry, you could also provide artificial tears, lalo na kung nagda-dry yung mata, para hindi maging irritated or red eye yung pasyente. Now, key recommendation number 4, physical therapy should be offered for severe paralysis or persistent paralysis. So severe paralysis is House-Brackmann 5 going to 6. Yung latter stage, no? Severity. Or let's say you started the treatment of the patient who is House-Brackmann 3, pero meron pa rin symptoms siya, no? Meron pa rin yung numbness or drooping of the mouth after 3 months of treatment, or after 3 months na follow-up, meron pa rin siyang numbness, okay? So you could offer the patient to undergo rehabilitation, okay? Yeah. For physical therapy for severe, yun nga sabi natin, what are the modalities for physical therapy? You could offer or suggest electrostimulation, though it's unclear of its effectivity. Some evidence suggests it can even worsen. So that depends on din sa physiatrist or sa rehab doctor kung i-offer niya ito. Other modalities that can be included, okay, in managing these two types of conditions is high-level laser therapy, hyperbaric oxygen, intratympanic steroid injection, and stellate ganglion blocks. Though, yun nga sabi, no high-quality evidence has been identified with the following treatments. So it's still just a, kumbaga, a possible recommendation for you to offer in physical therapy. Complementary alternative medicine, I think nandito si Elaine. I think in-offer din ito sa mga patients with Bell's palsy, pero currently kasi sa other studies, we still have insufficient recommendations of evidence for acupuncture for the treatment of Bell's palsy. But you can offer it if it's, let's say, available. We could try. There's no harm in trying, as long as the person that is doing the acupuncture has been trained to do your alternative and complementary medicine procedures. Okay? Lalo na sa atin, available naman sa atin sa CBMC ito. Okay, so that's the last slide for Bell's palsy. Are there any questions? Bilis lang, di ba? Oh, wala naman. Next lecture na tayo. Wala? Okay, next na tayo. Hanapin ko lang ang next PowerPoint. So our next topic would be occupational health. Magkaibang topic tayo. Medyo mahaba to konti pero okay lang. As long as kung gusto niyo kumain, kain na kayo dyan. Yeah. So identification of your occupational hazards. I think this was lectured before last year. So this is just a repeat. Kumbaga, kung nakita niyo itong slides ito. For the first years, I think this would be your first time for the lecture. So, yeah. This is a glimpse of last year's fight. I think meron din to sa mga other exams niyo. So, please do take this into consideration. Though 5 points ito, importante pa rin na malaman nyo. No? This lang yan. So, outline, introduction of industrial hygiene. So, what is industrial hygiene or occupational hygiene? It's the science and art of recognizing, evaluating, and control of environmental factors and stresses originating from the workplace. So factors or stressors may lead to sickness and impairment of health and wellness of your workers. Okay? For us, mga doctors and even healthcare workers na nasa clinic natin, have to be self-aware sa mga incoming health hazards na nasa inyo dyan. Whether it's wearing a mask, may mga inuubong pasyente, may mga tripwires din sa may baba ng clinic, okay, mga extension cords dyan na pasali-sali, okay, baka mauntog kayo kung may mga bagay-bagay na hindi naayos ng ang pagkasinop, di ba? So mas mainam na mas aware tayo sa mga types of hazards that are present in the clinics. So there are 3 economic sectors in our health workforce. For us in the health industry, we are in the service sector. Okay. Other sectors with the agriculture and the industries. Doon marami mga hazards yan. For us in the health sector, we also experience certain hazards. So as a family doctor, we can take up the role of an occupational health physician and help the industrial hygienist resolve the presence of hazard in the workplace. Kasi nakikita natin yung pasyente during, let's say, an occupational visit or an occupational clinic consultation, like sa EHS. May dumating sa inyo, sumasakit yung likod. Ano kayang rason? Titignan niyo, paano ba yung mo, sir? Yung usual habits mo pag nasa trabaho. Madalas po kasi, Doc, nakatutok ako sa computer. So, tatanungin mo, yung computer mo ba, yung level ng mata mo sa screen ay pantay or mas mababa yung screen? Kaya ka nakadumog, kaya sumasakit yung likod mo or yung leeg mo. That can be one way of assessing patients' ergonomic hazards, di ba? So mutual relationship of an occupational health doctor and an industrial hygienist is always important. Okay, an OHP informs the IH of any work-related occupational disease and this is identified in the hospital, and an hygienist will validate the employee complaint for potential hazards. Fortunately sa atin, walang IH. So tayo dapat, mas aware tayo sa surroundings natin. Kasi tayo lang makakita kung may mga hazards dyan sa paligid. If an IH is present, they will provide the OHP necessary steps for employees to respond of such work hazards. Now, if you train with BCom, tutunan mo din naman yung mga basics of an IH. So makikita mo kung ano ba yung mga kailangan mong gawin para maayos yung kapaligiran ng mas mataimtim, mas safe, kumbaga, for your workers. So what we do to help? What can we do? Sabi nga, as an occupational health doctor and member of OSH, we can be able to recognize and anticipate potential hazards. So hazards can lead to accidents, and accidents can either be 98% are preventable. So these accidents can either be acts and or conditions. And then only 2% are non-preventable. So meaning dun lang sa lugar na yon, maraming mga accidents sa ating trabaho na pwedeng maiwasan. And tingnan nyo dito, yung unhealthy acts, they are usually 88%, meaning kagagawan ng worker yan. Kagagawan ng empleyado, kagagawan din ng healthcare worker kung sa atin sa setting natin. Sa condition naman, 10% condition, meaning kagagawan ng infrastruktura ng lugar natin. So, kung kaya natin maging masinop or magawa yung trabaho natin without any type of accident, we could be more on the safe side. So, workplace risk assessment, okay, the WRA or high hazard identification is a must in cases of occupational medicine. So we have to identify the following, okay, workplace health hazards in the following categories. We have 4: physical hazards, chemical hazards, ergonomic hazards, and biological hazards. For physical hazards, let's say, for example, si Sir June, a male employee with no known comorbidities, presented with frequent headaches persisting for the past week, often accompanied by fatigue at the end of each workday. He is currently assigned at the office, which is situated adjacent actively in a construction site. A developing family medicine resident quarters. O sana all. Wala pa tayong quarters, no? Ongoing activities near his workplace include wall drilling, interior painting, which may be contributory to an environmental factor. No prior similar complaints were noted, and he denies any other illnesses. Sumasakit ang ulo niya kasi masyadong maingay sa kapaligiran dahil may mga construction kasi gumagawa na sila ng quarters ng residents. Sana totoo. No. So another thing, those are physical hazards, yung noise. You know? Maya, a healthcare worker, reports persistent eye strains attributed by continuous flickering of office lights. Hindi maganda yung pagka-install ng ilaw or pundido na yung ilaw. She noted that there's increasing difficulty of completing her nursing charts, no, during her duties, and it's associated with dizziness and visual discomfort. These symptoms have progressively worsened over the past 2 weeks, coinciding with ongoing intermittent power interruptions. So kung hindi na-address yung flickering of lights, like hindi napapalitan yung bombilya, okay, nakaka-provide yan ng hazard sa empleyado. Hindi makakatrabaho na maayos yan. Kaya it's always important that we create solutions in those situations, no? Now, another physical hazard dito, money. So yung nakita natin, that is, kumbaga, noise. Next would be visual pollution, yung lights na nag-flicker. How about for money? Money was brought to the ER because of shock from a malfunctioning circuit breaker, so electrical hazard at the basement of the medical arts building of CVMC. So nakuryente siya. It's also considered as a physical hazard. Okay? This might be a common scenario, lalo na sa ward. This is also considered a physical hazard. Yung mga pagbubukas ng ampules. It can lead to sharps, okay, that can cut your hands during the process. And it can also be a hazard to the patient. Paano? There are microshards that are noted to be admixed to the solution inside the vial kapag ganyan ang ginagawa natin. So eventually, kapag yung microshards ay nasama siya dun sa solution at na-inject sa pasyente, nag-provide ka ng hazard. Okay? And that happens. There is a study that was mentioned years back about those types of hazards or potential hazards. Kaya may mga na-develop ng mga needles or syringes na may filter para ma-avoid mag-inject ng mga sharp na vial shards to the patient during intravenous transfer of medications. Okay, so again, those are the examples of physical hazards: noise, vibration, inadequate illumination, extreme temperatures, extreme pressure, and radiation. Okay, ito, isa din tong pinagbabawal na technique ng mga medtech. Okay, yung pagbalik ng cap. Okay, recapping is a no-no, di ba? It's best that you fish the cap. Tapos hold it at the near the end of the cap. Wag na dun sa wag na nakatutok yung needle sa'yo. Okay? So this should never be a practice in healthcare. Kasi matutusok ka, lalo na kung used na yung syringe. Hindi papakuan ka pa. ICC ka pa. No? Infectious control ka pa. Yeah. Better do that. Alam kung gagalaw to. Ay, hindi. Ano ba yung gumalaw ba yun? Ito naman, ayan, nahawakan niyo yung autoclave without using any protective equipment. So the heat dissipating from the autoclave burned the patient's hand. So kawawa naman si medtech, no? Or kung ikaw, nag-autoclave ka ng mga gamit. Another is, yan, locks that are, kumbaga, not properly installed, or let's say nagkakaroon ng malfunction. It can also be caused or a physical type of hazard, diba? Machinery hazards can also occur. So for machinery hazards like this, the use of screws that is not appropriately used can cause certain damage and can be at risk also for the operator. Magkakaroon ka ng injury kapag ganyan ang ginagawa. So physical hazards can also classify under this is your mechanical hazards. So it's involving a machine. So machines are simple objects that can help, ease the process of doing task. Okay, whether it's a wedge, a lever, or an inclined plane. Okay, those are types of machines. And mechanical hazards are associated with machine-related injuries. So use of a wedge, use of a screw, use of a lever can be, kumbaga, if inappropriately used, can worsen, the scenario or increase the risk of hazards. So this example, sa image na to, pag napansin nyo, there are a lot of things that are going on and there are a lot of hazards that are possibly present in this situation. Pag titignan natin, one by one, itong mga to, they're not properly placed on its in the scenario, pwedeng mauntog siya. Okay? So that situation can lead to poor placement or poor arrangement of your stuff. Okay? That is a spilled oil siguro sa area na yan. Pwede kang madulas. Okay? Slip hazard. Those materials at the floor can be at risk for trip hazards. Okay? Wala siyang PPE. Wala siyang face shield. I assume wala rin siyang protective na gloves during your drilling, okay, in this machine. It can cause machinery hazards, okay? And it can also cause, let's say, yung mga residue from the metal grinder. It can flicker to the eye and it can damage the retina. It can cause injuries or accidents. So maraming mga bagay-bagay na pwede natin makita dito as types of or source of hazards in this scenario. So if let's say may nakikita pa kayo na hindi ko na-mention, yeah, it's up to you, no, to look at it and find a way para natin baguhin itong mga ganitong scenarios. So this is the proper way, di ba? If let's say for example, actually kulang pa siya. Wala siyang eye shield. Pero meron naman siyang hard hat. Okay naman. Meron siyang glove, protective glove. There is a area wherein you have enough space between the machine and the hand para di magkaroon ng hazard. Pero yun, kulang din siya sa eye protection. Okay? Isa din to. So, there is a risk. So, alam ko, yung mga lolo-lola natin or mga tatay natin na naglalagari, that is an increased risk, lalo na kung wala kang hand protection. Pwede masugat yung mga kuko nyo or yung daliri nyo. And yan, the inappropriate use of your machines or your devices like a screw with no protection at all. Let's say, for example, an insulated glove para mag-ayos or hindi mo pinatay yung saksakan during a breaker adjustment can be a source of hazard. So dapat, if you are also familiar with the things that you are fixing, you have to also take note that kailangan mo rin i-off for the risk of electrical hazards. So daming examples of physical hazard. Ito, for sure, maraming ganito. Pati yung computer ni Sir Jun sa office, ganyan, di ba? Pati yung mga extension cords sa may pantry, may ganyan, alam ko. Pag nag-charge kayo sa may microwave, take note din, merong capacity yung extension cord sa paggamit. So, do keep in mind na if, let's say, for example, that extension cord has reached its limit at sobrang mainit na, tanggalin mo na yung iba. Okay? Do not use an extension cord to attach an extension cord. Natawag na doon octopus. It will increase the risk of fire hazards. Yan. Ganyan. And pwedeng mangyari yan. And ayaw natin mangyari yan. Okay? Moving on, we have chemical hazards. Okay, chemical hazards can be coming from gases, vapors, dust, and fumes, and even mist from your used chemicals in the health sector. So it could either be your formaldehyde or your formalin used in preserving or fixing your specimens. It can be coming from your isopropyl alcohol, your methanol, in fixing your pap smear. It can be your H&E stain in doing your cuts in your pathology laboratory, di ba? Yung hematoxylin and eosin stains. They can be a source of chemical hazards. That's why when you are, if let's say you're a medtech, you're instructed, I think nowadays, you are instructed to wear a N95 or even a industrial level of a mask, okay, with a filter para mas magandang ma-avoid yung hazard of inhaling some fumes that are very lethal and potentially damaging to your health. Okay, yeah. Muriatic acid can also be one of those culprits kapag magkaroon ka ng hazard. Let's say naglilinis kayo sa banyo, tapos natapakan mo yung leak ng muriatic, nasugat na, alapnos na yung paa mo. Fumes also at the area, let's say meron tayo sa powerhouse that is may generator tayo doon or may gas leak, medyo ingat-ingat tayo sa mga ganyang situations. If you see any fumes in the area of your clinic or your workplace, please do inform your safety officer sa school, sa clinic nyo. For example, sa atin, inform nyo si Sir Jun. O kung duty ako, inform nyo ako. Si Sir Jun na lang. Okay. Next, ergonomic hazards. So sa atin, as healthcare workers, this is a common type of hazard. Yung tipong repetitive motion, for sure sa lahat ng mga doctors or residents, and even your clerks and interns, repetitive motion yung kakasulat nyo sa chart, masakit na yun sa kamay, di ba? It can lead to ergonomic hazards, stiffening, as you grow older, pag naging consultant na kayo, nagsusulat, I think sana, nagsusulat pa rin. Okay, if you grow older, yung kamay nyo, sasakit yan, nagkukos ng either carpal tunnel or tenosynovitis. I see patients in the private clinic with complaints of these symptoms. Yung carpal tunnel and tenosynovitis, nakikita ko yan sa mga tellers sa bangko that are almost 20 years. And then they complain of the wrist pain, okay, or numbness on the medial nerve. No? Pag if we do the maneuvers, mapapresent mo yung features ng impingement in the retinaculums. Okay? So, it's a good way of assessing kung health-related siya. Try to ask kung ano yung trabaho nila. At try to ask kung ano yung kadalasan nilang ginagawa. Okay? Yung mga nag-garden, yung mga nagsasaka ng mga pasyente natin, tanong nyo, anong trabaho niyo po? Ano yung kadalasan yung activity pag nasa bahay? Kaya I always include okay, the environment or the situation, kung ano yung ginagawa nila. Because ergonomic-wise, yun yung mga usual culprits for MSTs, okay, or musculoskeletal strains. Forceful work. Let's say naglabas siya ng 3 balde, okay, ng carpet or sobrang bedsheet, okay, isang gabi. Tapos, she is already 60 years old. So, nilabhan niya lahat yun. Sinipag siya. Then, the next day, sakit na ng kamay niya. Siyempre, that's also considered a hazard. Okay? Awkward position. Let's say, for example, sa picture na to, hindi ka level nung mata nung healthcare worker yung monitor ng screen. Pwede naman i-angle ni ma'am or ni doc yung level ng screen to a siguro an acute angle or an obtuse angle, wag lang yung 90 degrees siya sa computer. Para lang din hindi siya yung sumisilip-silip sa monitor. Okay? Or naka-slouch siya. Better nga naka-level up yung yung computer para lang din ma-lessen yung strain for the neck during chart rounds, di ba? So that awkward position can be a common thing sa atin. Like sa clinic din, isa din yon yung ano to, yung table actually natin parang masakit din yan sa likod. Hindi ergonomic yung mga yung mga chairs, okay? And they cannot provide full comfort lalo na sa mga resident doctors. Pero syempre, we're government employees. Kung ano yung available, yan yung gagamitin natin. So you will encounter these types of ergonomic hazards if you go to the employees health service. Napakadami niyan. Okay, static posture, yung kadalasan nakaupo lang, wow, no? Or kadalasan nakatayo. Masakit na yung balakang. Mga guard, isa yan. Nakatayo lang madalas buong araw. Okay, repetitive motion, as mentioned earlier, mga nagtatype, yellers. Yan. Ito, if you would always note, if let's say nagkakaroon siya ng headaches, that is occipital in nature, look at the vertebra or the back. Minsan kasi yan na yung feature mo na ay nakakuba yung pasyente. So if you assess the patient, yun nga, awkward yung position niya. Ito, I think this was the child na parang buong araw na lang nagmo-mobile games. Okay? And eventually, ganyan na itsura ng leg niya. Kadodota mo or kaka-ML mo. Diba? Sad. Pati yung yung vertebra prominence lumabas, naging prominent na. Yeah, they had to repair. Fortunately, huwag naman maging ganyan yung mga pasyente natin para ma-reconstruct yung normal curvature ng neck. Now, we go to the biological hazards. Sa atin, in healthcare, we've experienced biological hazards in the past. Siyempre, we recently had the pandemic. Siyempre, COVID can be one of those hazards. Kaya kailangan nagkaroon tayo ng PPE. Bacterial contamination can be also a potential hazard, viral infection, outbreaks, and food poisoning. So yung mga sabi ko nga kanina, yung tinapay nyo na Spanish bread kanina, baka mamaya madapuan yun pag inupuan lang ng pasyente. So ingat-ingat kayo dun, ha? Okay. So mukhang ganito yung itsura ng bukas minsan, no? Ganyan lang. What's the hazard here? Naka-PPE naman yung mga pasyente natin. Naka-PPE din si Doc. Okay. Yun lang. The ventilation can be a problem in this situation. The open air siya. It can be yung crowding sa area. Limit the people, especially if it's a infectious or communicable disease. So at least 2 tao lang yung nandyan sa area na yan. Ilayo nyo muna si Doc sa situation na yan. Mas maganda sana, si Doc, hindi siya naka-type B. Wala man lang siyang, gown na blue. Buti pa si nurse naka-blue. No? Maganda rin sana, nag-blue na rin siya. Na, type B. Pag sinabi kong type B, yung disposable gown. Type A noon, nung panahon natin ng COVID, yung full hazmat suit. Yan. Naka-type B. Ganyan panahon nung 2020s, 2023. Kahit sa ER, ganyan. Diba? Ganyan sana ideal. Pero syempre, hintayin natin kung mag-improve yung facilities natin. So if ever, ganyan, mas lesser at saka controlled yung source ng infection and spreads healthcare workers. Direct hazards. Okay, we go to direct hazards. It can be, if ever may encounter nyo siya, magkakaroon ka ng accident talaga. You have your fall, electrical hazards, mechanical hazards, and flying objects. Psychosocial hazards. If let's say feeling of missing out ka, kasi ito yung nawala na. Wala pa ako nilagay dyan. Feeling of missing out, let's say for example, in isolation, this is more on the mental aspect. Let's say for example, you're burnout sa work, you're burnout in sa training, okay, that can still be a potential hazard. Let's say you work as a lone person, hindi ka tumutulong o naghahanap ng tulong sa iba, ganun. You're easily burned out eventually. So don't try to corner yourself from others. Kung lalayo, ganun. Try to communicate, try to socialize then. If let's say for example, everything is going well for others, kailangan din na you have to mingle, kumbaga. Try to find ways na you work as a team, especially in healthcare workers or even in clerks and interns. Kaya nga may groupings kayo para magtulungan kayo. For residents, then we have your batches or your mentors or even your seniors or your buddies or yung team nyo. Okay? So hopefully walang psychosocial hazards that are occurring, especially in training and residency training. Kasi kung feeling left out yung isa, syempre, that can be a spark of or a nidus of cascading events na ayaw natin mangyari. Pero alam ko, kung naman kayo, well-knit kayo mga residents as well as for the clerks. Close naman kayo. Now, how do we control occupational hazards? So we have a hierarchy of control in terms of control measures. So it's often noted to be an inverted triangle. So hierarchy of control measures include engineering control, administrative, and the PPE. Bakit yung PPE yung pinakababa? It's the lowest form. So wala ka nang magagawang mga projects. Basta magsuot ka na lang ng protective equipment, pero the hazard is present, hindi ka lang maapektuhan kasi meron kang PPE, pero other people are also affected. So, hindi siya very efficient. Whereas dun sa dalawang types of control. Okay? Let's go to the highest form of control, engineering control. Marami tayong types of your engineering control: elimination, substitution, isolation, containment, modification, automation, and ventilation. So for elimination, you remove the hazard itself from the workplace. Pag sinabing remove, move the hazard. Okay? Moving the work to a ground level from moving it from a height. Let's say, nagtatrabaho ka, nandun ka sa may second floor. Ang bigat-bigat ng binubuhat mo. Baka kasi mag-rolling ka dun sa taas. So better you shift your work at the ground level para hindi ka may risk of fall sa situation na yon. Another thing is, you redesign the process flow. Let's say, the next process kasi, you have to be placed in an area that is more exposed to other individuals. Let's say, yung work mo ay mag-collect ng sputum sample, tapos yung collection site mo, daming tao. Kaya dapat yung collection mo ng plema ay nandun sa open air, sa labas. Okay, you remove the risk of the collection area from inside facing it outside. You eliminate, you redesign. Eliminating a step that the process that involves hazardous materials. So, may mga examples ako dyan later, papakita ko. Yung hazardous materials, yan. Hazard control strategies in which a material process is replaced with another. You could, let's say, yung mga syringes in the past na wala siyang cap, or yung IV cannula na walang auto-retract na mechanism. You try to substitute that with something innovative. So lessens the hazard. So the hazard of new material is considered. Hindi ko alam kung nilagay ko dito yung pan. May example tayo dyan. Pag napansin nyo sa ER in the past, meron yung auto-retract. Pag pinindot mo, mawawala na yung needle. Nakalagay na siya dun sa loob. Meron na siyang locking mechanism. Hindi na siya makakatusok ng iba pang tao. Okay? You substitute it with a less hazardous material. Another thing is, let's say, you replaced a hazardous chemical to a more less potentially hazardous chemical, but it provides equal effectivity in your process, like say staining or let's say fixing, okay, na mas makakatulong in the long run kasi lesser yung exposure to fumes. Okay? Yeah. Isolation. Isolating or separating the hazard or hazardous workplace practice from people not involved in the work in general or general area. Marking a hazardous area. Kaya din ito, yung, like sinabi ko kanina, yung collection ng plema, you place it in an area dun sa labas. Okay? Na note mo na sputum collection site. Parang hindi naman sila din lumapit dun sa area na yun. Okay? Another thing is yung material and recovery area natin. Hindi dapat nakatiwangwang yung mga basura natin kung saan-saan. So you have to place the material and recovery area in a specific area that is labeled. You isolate the hazards in that particular area, making it less exposed to the public. Okay, that is isolation. Containment. Containment of a hazard or source of the hazard by sealing them to a vessel or a container or system to create a barrier. So yung mga biosafety cabinets, level 1 to 3 na ginagamit in the laboratories, especially in handling specimens, those are the best example for containment. Airlock or negative pressure areas or chambers like in the wards of TB ward sa mga high-end facilities like your lung center na may negative pressure can also be an example of containment. A glove box can also be another example for containment. So, another na example ko kanina doon, yung substitution, another way can change that is redesignment. So, changing the physical operating conditions without altering the material or process. So, nag-provide ka ng other ways of doing the activity or the work area. Okay? So, redesigning what is usually done in the process can also lessen the presence of hazards. So let's say, wala ng tao, wala ka ng manufacturer sa facilities nyo, may automation na, may robotic hands na dun sa area that can also be better way of improving engineering control because your healthcare workers or your factory workers are less exposed sa hazardous materials kasi meron ka ng robotic arm na gumagawa ng trabaho. Ang problem lang dyan, syempre wala ng trabaho yung tao, robot na lang, na nag-aayos. So at least yung siguro yung gumagamit na ng robot, tao din pa rin naman na nagmamanipulate sa may more safer area. Ventilation is also an important thing. So the process of supplying or removing air by natural or mechanical means to and from a space. So ventilation, para lang din, let's say for example, sa area na may madaming fumes, like in the laboratory, in the pathology lab, dapat may exhaust doon. So para lang din magkaroon ka ng exchange of toxic fumes outside and inward na meron ka namang less toxic or innocuous na air, kumbaga. Okay? So moving on to the next level, your administrative control. So dito naman, more of the policies sa trabaho. Meaning kung ano yung mga structures na infrastructures, yun yung pinaka-best talagang baguhin. So that is part of engineering control. So si engineering, kaya pag tinignan nyo, most of the safety officers of a hospital, nasa engineering yan, sa powerhouse. CVMC, most likely, mga powerhouse. Sila engineer, tumaliwan sa ating CVMC, di ba? Administrative control naman, that's us in the admin, also in the doctors that are involved in the facilities and even the nurses, okay? So how to lessen the exposure to hazards? Let's say for example, noong COVID, reduction of period of work, nabawasan na yung work hours para lang din less yung exposure. Or let's say, sobrang init ng panahon nung nakaraan na lessen din yung exposure ng healthcare workers para makapagpahinga. Ganun. Sana all, no? Adjustment of work schedule can also be one. Let's say, may straight duty, tapos afternoon, meron kang time na may off ka na 1 week. Yung panahon ng COVID din. Best examples nun. Education and empowerment. Let's say we do town hall meetings to educate on the basic types of hazards and what to see and what to expect that employees should do. Ginagawa na natin yan sa OSH committee. We have basic safety officer training, SO1 training. Not sure kung kailan yung next, pero last 2 months ago meron yun. We were involved there. And binibigay yun sa mga healthcare workers para maging aware din kayo sa types of task as a safety officer. Okay, emergency response education in terms of in situations na merong hazards. You're doing your BLS and ACLS. So dapat every member of the CVMC roster is well equipped with a BLS. Kaya meron tayong daily round of ACLS BLS training. And good housekeeping and maintenance. So dito naman pumapasok sila, Ma'am Sasha. Okay, so dapat if ever may nabanggit na may leak, diyan na dapat sila. Kung if ever may malfunctioning na material, nandiyan ang carpentry. If let's say may malfunctioning pipeline, then dyan ang plumbing. Okay, tatawagan agad sila. So those are protocols that can be instated in the institution. So administrative control, more on the do's and don'ts of certain administrative functions within the workforce, kumbaga. Then finally, sa atin, syempre, tayo, the mask and the gloves and the gowns, you have your personal protective equipments. In this situation naman, these are the lowest forms kasi nga, we isolate ourselves from the hazard. We don't remove the hazard. Okay? So these are, kumbaga, we protect only our own self, no? Parang selfish, no? Sarili lang. So hazards still exist in the environment, pero syempre you're protected by a PPE. Protection is for the wearer only, not for the rest. So selfish nga. If PPE is defective or becoming ineffective, the user becomes exposed to the hazard. Kung mali yung pagkakalagay mo ng mask mo, or mali yung pagkalagay mo ng gown mo, tapos tinouch mo pa rin yung balat mo sa loob, gamit yung gloves, edi na-expose ka pa rin sa hazard. Okay? Introduce an additional hazard kasi kung hindi maganda yung pagkagamit, tapos hindi mo rin alam paano gamitin, and at the same time, ginamit mo yung contaminated PPE sa loob ng clear area, nagkalat ka lang, nag-cause ka lang ng contamination, it can provide more hazards, di ba? And may not be suitable for continuous use. Kaya disposable lagi ang PPE. Hindi yan paulit-ulit dapat gamitin. Okay? May not be worn, if let's say, lalo na, and then, if not worn properly, it can provide more hazards. And it may transfer more hazards to another location. Sabi ko na yan, containment yan. Contamination pala rather. Okay? So, yun na yung last na type of control. So, are there any questions? Wala na. May tanong ba kayo?
Dok, please, Dok, ako may tanong.
Yes, Lynn.
Doon sa Dok, regarding doon sa ergonomic hazard, actually nung nasa EHS kasi ako, Dok, majority na complain ng mga client natin, especially the employee, is yun nga, Dok, naka-encounter ako upper back pain, radiating to shoulder, mga ganun, Dok, na mostly, for example, Dok, common sa mga medtech, especially when they're handling yung sa microscope, matagal silang nakaupo. So, parang sila mismo, direct, yung complaint nila because of the posture. Pag may mga ganitong complaint, Dok, paano yung process natin sa CVMC? Does it need kailangan meron mo ng census na maraming
Oh, good
ergonomic
question yan.
hazard? Oo.
Actually,
Meron ba tayong existing na OSH din sa CVMC, Dok?
yes, meron tayo existing OSH. Actually, this year lang ako na-include. Ang nangyayari dapat dyan is, Di ba sabi ko nga, you have your OHP, occupational health doctor, and the industrial hygiene or industrial hygienist. Let's say, for example, you note as an OHP na in this particular division, like your allied health in medtech mo yan, madami sa kanila may MSD of the shoulders. And then you note that most employees with MSD of the shoulders, they have the similar exposure. Like yun nga, handling of the microscope, naka-assign sila sa microscopy, sa urinalysis. Kalahin mo na ba, sandamakmak na tae, tsaka ihi yung tinitignan mo buong araw. Tapos microscope lang hawak mo. So masakit yun sa katawan, di ba? Kapag tuloy-tuloy na ginagamit. Or ganun yung postura. So it will be important to discuss with the industrial hygienist in a perfect setting na in the OSH. No? Kung wala naman, we report that to the OSH committee. Okay? Kaya later on, mas maganda na ma-include yung total number of cases in the future. Kung let's say MSD, saang division nagkakaroon ng ganito? Is it more on the finance division, allied health? Okay? And then anong particular area? Kaya doon magkakaroon tayo ng magandang mga source of studies, especially in occupational health related studies na pwedeng i-push. Even kahit mga residents, pwedeng gawin yun. Parang study o cross-tabulation of your studies on the incidence of this particular MSD para lang din may push ang policy dun sa institution like in CVMC na they have to correct their ergonomic functions of medtechs na nagkakaroon ng MSD, either better positioning ng upuan nila, better positioning ng microscope nila, that can be beneficial in the long term. So, pwede yun. Actually, ngayon, wala pa kasi hinihintay ko yung structure. Wala naman magsusumbong sa akin, no? Hinihintay ko yung structure for the OSH kung paano ba yung workaround with how do we present these types. So, kaya valuable din yung mga reports ninyo. Let's say, for example, we will be trying to revise din yung manner of reporting ng EHS in the future para magamit siya as data, real-time data of the OSH committee. Since kaka-include na ako doon, we will include division, the most common conditions in each division in the future. Okay, so good question, Dr. Elaine. Mag-OSH ka.
Dok, hindi, Dok, additional lang na dito lang ako. Ang OSH po ba, Dok, is under ng EHS or the other way around or separate siya? OSH, EHS, magkaibang ano? Or OSH tapos under ni OSH, EHS siya
Sa
sa
atin,
sa organ, oo. Or ideally, sa
CHS ay
organization.
under family medicine. Hindi siya under OSH pa. Hindi pa
Mm.
siya, kung kukunin na siya ng OSH, mariredeem dapat siya into occupational health clinic. So, wala pa naman
Okay.
go signal kung kukunin nila tayo or what. Dapat meron silang tie-up with FAMMed. Kasi subspecialty ng FAMMed ang occupational medicine.
Okay. Sige. Thank you, Doc. Ikaw na yung next, Doc. Under FAMED ulit ang OSH.
Ay nako. Sana magdagdag pa tayo, dami niyo pa mag-OSH. Ayun. Thank you, Doc Elaine. May mga iba pang tanong? Nagutom na lahat. Sige. So I think we're done for this evening. 7:11 na. Okay. Thank you all for listening. Nakuha niyo naman siguro yung first slide. If wala, send ko na lang yung PowerPoint later. Sige. Mag-picture ba tayo?
Yes, sir.
O sige, on yun na yung camera niyo.
Pa na lang po yung magkano, sir. Check ko lang po. Wait lang, sir. Ito ba to? Okay. Wait lang po. Para lahat kasama.
Si Doc Amy, baka may pasyente.
Oo nga eh. Okay. 1, 2, 3, smile. Isa pa po. 1, 2, 3, smile. Okay po.
Okay, thank you. Kain na tayo, dinner na.
Thank you,
Thank you,
Dr.
Doc.
Thank
Good
you.
night.
Thank you po,
Night.
Doc.
Thank you, Doc.